Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're from. Welcome to our Basic Digital Illustration Workshop. My name is Miki, and I'm the Illustration Community Manager of Pixabay. I'm currently based in Japan, and joining me today is Ben.
Right, lovely to meet you. So I'm from Affinity, and recently, obviously, Canva has acquired us, so we're now part of the same family. Just really excited to be here today to help out with this basic digital illustration workshop.
So for our introductions, I want to hear from everyone. Why don't you go ahead and pop in the chat your name, where you're from, and is it morning, afternoon, or evening in your area right now? So while they type that in, since I'm in Japan, it's currently evening for me. How about you, Ben?
So it's almost midday, so it's almost lunchtime here in the UK. But I've not quite had my breakfast yet, so I've messed up there.
Oh no. Okay. We have Jody from Sydney. Um, Brisbane, Tabitha. We have Aika from the Philippines. From Texas. Wow. Hello, Joanna. Well, we're all over the world right now. This is like international. Thank you for all your introductions and welcome again, everyone. Hi, Chen. Hi, Bea. Okay. I would like to discuss a few reminders. First, if you're comfortable, maybe we could open our cameras so that I can see everyone. Second, I would appreciate it if you could mute your microphones when not needed. If you have questions, you can either use our raise hand feature at the bottom, and I'll call you, or you can chat your questions. Third, this workshop is being recorded just for everyone's knowledge. And finally, today, we will be using the software Affinity Designer. So before we begin, I want to check if everybody has downloaded Affinity Designer too. Please let us know in the chat if you have not installed Affinity Designer.
So there's a little
Julia
bit of
is
time as
part,
well, just before. Sorry, go.
yep. Julia is part of the Pixabay team, so she'll be able to help us if some of you guys don't have access yet. It seems like there's no problem. I also asked you to download a file from Google Drive. Were you able to download that as well? If not, Julia will send it in the chat box. For those who already have it, you don't have to download it again. Great, it seems like there's no problem. They followed the instructions. Today, we will first learn a little bit about color theory, followed by some warm-up drawing exercises. Then, Ben will introduce to us the tools of Affinity Designer, and we'll do some referencing exercises. Finally, we will be making our own artwork through the two activities we have prepared today. Before we begin, I just have a few questions. How familiar are you with Affinity Designer, digital illustration, and Pixabay? I have prepared a little poll for you guys. I would appreciate it if you could answer that. Great. Okay, thank you for answering the poll. It seems like most of you are not familiar with Affinity and digital illustration. Hopefully, at the end of this workshop, we'll be able to at least help you familiarize yourself with both the software and what digital illustration is. Great. Shall we start? Okay, so color plays a vital role in design and everyday life. It can catch your attention to a certain image, like this palm tree at the beach, evoke a certain emotion like the yellow in the smiley face, and even communicate messages to us without using words, like the colors in a stoplight, which tells us to stop, slow down, or go. So how do we know which colors look good together and which ones don't? It's through color theory. Let's start at the very beginning, the very basic ones. So I think everybody knows our primary colors. We have red, blue, and yellow. Now, red and yellow make orange. Blue and yellow make green. Red and blue make purple. If we mix these colors together, we get more in-between shades. Altogether, they form what's called the color wheel. Great. Now let's take it one step further with hue, saturation, and value. They are the key to understanding more colors. Hue is the easiest one. It's just another term for color. Saturation refers to intensity. So this means whether the color seems to be more subtle, like here at the bottom, or more vibrant, like here at the top. Value has to do with how dark or light the color is, ranging from black to white. So we can get either dark reddish brown here at the top, or pastel pink right here at the bottom. So now we put this all together to make professional-looking color schemes. They're actually tried and true formulas based on something called color harmony. So for example, we have these color harmonies. So the first one is analogous. Pretty easy. These colors are next to each other on the color wheel, like reds and oranges, or cool colors like blues and greens. Next, we have monochromatic, also easy. It uses a single base hue or color. So for this example, we have red, and it extends using its shades, tones, and tints, using what I taught you before, saturation and value. The best thing about monochromatic is that they're guaranteed to match. Next, we have triad. These are three colors that are evenly spaced, forming a triangle. Next, we have complementary. These are colors on opposite side of the color wheel. So for example, we have blue and orange, or the classic red and green for Christmas. Next, we have split complementary. This uses colors on opposite side of the no, this uses colors on either side of the complement. So it uses three colors and two complementary. So for this example, we have red, yellow green, and blue green. Finally, we have square, which forms a square. So these are the color harmonies that are most commonly used. I know these all sound so complicated, but they're actually online resources that gives you automated color palettes. I've sent you a link in the chat box. If you could open that up. Canva has a color palettes page where you can see many combinations of colors that are already in harmony with each other. So you can just pick one and use those colors. I'll teach you later on how to transfer these colors to Affinity. Speaking about Affinity, now that you know about color theory, let's learn about Affinity Designer. I would now like to pass the mic to Ben, who would introduce us to Affinity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Mickey. That was amazing. Color theory is such an important thing as well, particularly when you're starting to get to grips with sort of digital illustration. Amazing. So, as we said earlier, I'm Ben, and I'm from the Affinity team, and we've been recently acquired by Canva. So that means we're also now part of the Pixabay family too, which is rather exciting. We've been definitely welcomed in, which is really lovely. And the Affinity guys make three different applications. So make Affinity Photo, Designer, and Publisher. And each of these applications performs a very different role. So Affinity Photo is our pixel-based photo editing software, as you might imagine. Designer is our raster and vector editing tool, so it's really good for logos and things like that. And then Affinity Publisher is our desktop publishing application, but it also allows you to use the tools from Designer and Photo. It allows you to be a little bit more creative than maybe you may imagine originally. And today we're going to be focusing on just one of these applications. Now, you may be forgiven of thinking that we might focus on photo today. And that may be because you've got a background in Photoshop, and that may be where you used to illustrate. And photo's not a bad shout. You can use photo to digitally illustrate and use just admit this person for a second, and use that to illustrate. But if you use Affinity Designer, you can use both raster and vector elements in your drawings. And there's certain advantages to that, which we're going to explore a little bit later on. And for those of you who don't know, this is a sort of a screenshot of Affinity Designer, and we're going to get to grips with that in a little minute. Now, I've said vector and raster, but we should probably go into what they actually mean. So we'll start with raster actually. And raster content is pixel based. That means that it's built by pixels. And this is something like if you were to use like a raster brush and you were to brush it across your page, it would slowly generate that image using pixels. So essentially squares of different colors to build up that result. And that's great. It's a really nice, effective flowing method, and it allows you as well to get sort of maybe more realistic styles. So that sort of thing. So you can do sort of more of a realistic watercolor effect, for instance. I think like Mickey's done all that background somewhere here. You've then got vector. And vector works a little bit differently. So vector essentially allows you to draw shapes or lines or images using nodes. So you essentially position a node in a place, click somewhere else, and the computer will mathematically generate that line. The advantage, though, is that vector allows you to go back afterwards and edit that line using the nodes. Now, again, we're definitely going to go into this in a lot more detail later on. So if you don't get it, it's fine. We'll touch base a little bit more later on as well. But for the minute, I think it's time to get you guys using the applications. And for this, we're just going to focus on one very specific tool. And that tool is going to be the raster brush tool. And we're going to use that to do some basic drawing exercises. If you're anything like me, I was taught by a very old-fashioned drawing teacher, and she never let us start a session without warming up and getting our hands and eyes in. So what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to follow along as well at the same time if possible, is I'd like you to open Affinity Designer. And in that, I'd also like you to have open the download file that we asked you to download. And fingers crossed, it should look a little bit something like this. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to zoom and pan around the document, because that's always quite useful, because if we start drawing at the minute out here, it's going to be a little bit tricky. So there's a couple of different ways to zoom, but quite simply, if you hold Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and scroll your mouse forwards, it will zoom in, which is quite a good little way in. Obviously, if you roll it backwards, it will zoom out instead. Now, if you're struggling with that, and for instance, you're on a touchpad and you don't have a mouse, instead, if you come down to the navigation panel, which is this little panel on the right-hand side, really right in the bottom corner, we'll just select that. You can click anywhere on the document just by single clicking, and then use the scroll bar to zoom in and out. And that's if you're on a touchpad or something like that, that might be a little bit easier for you. If you do have a mouse, you can press the scroll wheel down and we can drag the canvas around and get into a nice comfortable position. Again, if you don't, you can use the transform panel or navigator panel, sorry, just to push your canvas around. Amazing. We're going to talk about one other tool just before we go on to the brush tool, and that is the move tool. And it looks like a black cursor. It's always the topmost tool on your left-hand side, always. And this obviously allows you to select things and move around the canvas and area and move and transform other shapes. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we select our drawing exercises page. So it's really simple. We're going to single click to select it. And you'll notice on your layers panel that we now have this page selected. So it should see sort of 2 drawing exercises sort of highlighted now in blue. Before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and create a pixel layer. And again, we'll come on to layers a little bit later on, but simply you need to go down to this sort of oblong square that says add pixel layer and single click. And what we've done there is we've created a new layer to put all of our drawings on top of, just to keep it nice and contained and nice and neat. And again, we'll go into that detail a little bit later. Great. So next we need the raster brush tool. So we're going to go up to our top left-hand side, and we've got 3 icons here. We've got this blue one, which says it's called the designer persona. And to its right, we've got the pixel persona, which is made up of these little squares. And that's the set of tools that we would like to use. So we're going to single click on that. and you'll notice that my space has changed. All okay, Carl, I think? Yeah. Am I going a bit too fast? I can slow down if need be. Okay, cool. I've lost the chat. Hopefully Mickey can help you if I'm losing people. Cool. So the tool that we want to use, as I've said, is the paintbrush tool. So it's this tool on your left-hand side with the red handle and the little brush. And simply what we want to do is we want to try and follow along with these drawing exercises. So we're going to start nice and easy with a bit of a stroke. And I think actually if I just pull this stroke at the minute, it's probably going to be, that's not too bad a thickness actually. But what we could do is your stroke is at the minute really big. So if this is currently probably on about 64 or to 100, we just reduce this down to, let's say about 10%. And this is going to reduce or increase the width of your brush. Just like that chat, sorry. Repeat how to create a new play. Absolutely. Jodie's just asking in the chat how to create a new pixel layer. It's not the end of the world if you don't. It's just nice for neatness. But essentially, if we go back to the move tool and we make sure that we have our artboard selected, which is this whole drawing exercise space, we come over and we make sure that therefore again that it's selected on the layers panel. We're going to scroll down to the bottom here. And can we see this little square that's got, again, a few pixels just inside? If you just hover over, it says add pixel layer. We're just going to simply single click to create a new pixel layer here. And all this does is it means that if it all went horribly, horribly wrong, we can just hide that layer and create another one, you know, if you wanted to. Nothing too complicated. I'm just going to reset my brush back to a basic one because I think I've been playing around. Great. So we access the move tool. So we need to go back to the vector to the paintbrush tool. If you did what I did there to create the new pixel layer, so we want to make sure that brush tool selected, and we just want to start drawing out, trying to do these basic drawing exercises. Like I said, you can adjust your width of your brush at any point. So you could make it really chunky if you really wanted to, really thick. I think I'm going to keep mine probably a little bit less, maybe on about 10. Now, undo here is your friend. Because this is all raster drawing and it's the skill of the brush and the skill of the hand, I often undo a lot of what I've done and just try again until I've got something a little bit nice. But remember, this is a warm-up exercise. We're trying to do this sort of a bit loose, bit free to get things going. In fact, I'm not very happy with 3. Let's just redo 3, maybe slow down a little bit. Just drag this across. I realize sometimes with a mouse, this is a little bit tricky. So yeah, don't worry too much. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think I'm going to move on to circles, but obviously go at your own pace. You may have rocketed ahead of me here. I'm never very good at circles. I think when I draw normally on paper, I do lots of rings and then try and get a nice shape. But let's see how we go. Not too bad. Again, just draw a couple of circle shapes. I've missed a little bit there, so we'll just redo this. And again, just a few nice circles. That one wasn't too bad. Well, that one was less good though. We'll undo that one. Just trying to get your hand and your eyes. So I think for the next one, I think this is my favorite one. We've got spiral, swirls, and loops. And I really enjoy this one. It's quite fun. We're going to look to make obviously lots of looping shapes. And I think we'll go across, and I'm using the speed method rather than probably accuracy. So I'm hoping the speed sort of makes up for any mistakes. But I just find this one really fun. It's just really nice to sort of get it looping across. Yeah, amazing. Ooh, got someone else entering as well. I think that's Julia just coming in. Amazing. In fact, I've rushed that last one a bit. Let's go a little bit slower. Not bad, not bad. So for the next one, we've got these sort of humps. making this sort of snaky, zigzaggy pattern. And so far at the minute, we've just been using the vector, sorry, not vector, the pixel brush tool, just to make lines and marks. But we could use the system to help us out a little bit in this. So if you look at the bar up here, and this bar is called the context toolbar, we've got something called stabilizer. And what this means is you can activate the stabilizer by single clicking and ticking that box. And this gives you a little bit of stabilization around to be able to draw with. And it means that you can do lots of like really nice and smooth shapes, a little bit like these humps that we're drawing. And what it's called, it's actually called a rope stabilizer. So if I zoom in a little bit more, maybe, we can see if I drag it across my screen, I've got this little ropey thing. And essentially it's just adding a little bit of stabilization to my pen. And particularly for drawing sort of swirls or C shapes, it's going to be really quite useful. So I'd say at least give that a go. If you decide you hate it, you can take it off. But I'm gonna try it for the rest of my drawings. So we'll try it for number 2 as well, just trying to get them really nice and crisp. I feel like I've got a proper snake going on here. And in fact, maybe we'll take it off for the last one. So if you're not enjoying the stabilizer, you can unclick it here. And we can just go back to being freehand. And the freehand's a little bit more responsive, obviously, which is good. And a little bit more instantaneous, if that's the sort of thing that you want to do. Amazing, because these are meant to be quick warm-up drawing exercises. We'll move on. I think I would take the stabilizer off for this next one because I think it might be tricky with it on. But go at your own pace, however you'd like. And for this one, obviously, we're looking to draw a bit of probably a circle up top, and then we're looking to connect a few lines down below. And just draw this connection up. It's not particularly neat, my one, so we might just undo a few bits there. And just make a bit more of a nice little cone. We come across to number 2 as well. Give it another go. I like the fact that Mickey's given us a chance here to redo this if we mess up, which is quite nice. So I'm sure I will. Oh yeah, I've missed the join here actually quite significantly. Maybe we need to go even once more again. Just trying through here. Even worse, sorry. All right, so I'm going to move on to this is a line down cylinder as well. So I'm going for a nice sort of circle to start with. And in fact, I've not tried this with the stabilizer. Let's try this with the stabilizer. Let's see if we get a nice circle. It's not too bad. Take it off for the lines. And ooh, definitely not that one. I'm just going to go for, ooh, I'm not doing very well at that one. There we go. That's better. And just join that together as a bit of a cylinder. Again, these don't need to be perfect. They're little warm-ups that we're just trying to get your eye in for starting to draw. I'm glad they don't have to be perfect because mine could use some work, I'm sure. Cool. We're going to look at the square now with the cube, and this is a little bit more my wheelhouse, a bit more straight lines. I find this personally easier. I always start at the top one, and then I come down. And again, just making sure that we connect all these up, making some nice straight lines. We could also, though, use the system here as well to help us. So whenever you're using a tool in Affinity Designer, there's something called the hint line. So the bottom left-hand side, just here, on the right of the bottom runner, there's this text, and it's really small, and it's probably silly that it's so small, but it basically says some hints about the tool you're using. And one of these being, if you hold Shift after you've started drawing, is you will draw a perfectly straight line. Now we can use this particularly with our downstrokes for this cube here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw on the top of my cube again. Just draw the top of that cube out, and then I'm going to start drawing down, hold Shift, and get a perfectly straight line. Again, just repeating this here. Again, we could probably just have to do this freehand just to connect this cube up. So you can start with Shift and it will draw a line, but I like to start and then hold Shift to get that straight line to activate. Just a nice little tip to use the system there as a final point. Awesome. So we're on the last cube, and this one's a little bit tricky. I think what I haven't mentioned here actually is that one of the advantages we said earlier, the fact that we're doing and using a raster brush, is that we can decide what that brush is going to look like and give it a bit of texture or give it a bit of shape. So if you go over to the right-hand side, and you see we've got the layers panel here. Next to the layers panel, we've got the brushes panel. So if we select the brushes panel, in here are loads of different default brushes that you can choose to use to change your brush. So obviously, I will show very at the beginning, you could change your width up here on your top left. But if you select the basics drop down, you can go in here and you can find lots of different brushes. And I think I've got a slightly different list to some people because I've downloaded some brushes. But the inks brush set is a default set. So I'm going to go to inks and I'm going to go, I quite like drawing personally with a bit of a comic pen. So I'm going to select Comic 36, but obviously you can experiment with this. What this does is it basically, when I make a mark now, is it gives just a bit of a pressure profile, bit of a sort of square edge to make sort of a nice mark like this. And I'm going to use this for my last one, just to try and make this last square. It's probably a little bit thick. Probably should have thinned it down slightly. Amazing. Just to pull this shape in. It's probably being a little bit more forgiving that I'm not connecting quite to my edges, which is probably helping slightly. We'll do the last one. We'll swap for something else interesting as well. So maybe we'll go for a dry ink brush. Well, that's too dry and too big for this. Maybe we'll go back to a slightly thicker comic brush and just drop the thickness. And again, I'm just looking for this little square shape for our last exercise. I've got a bit more rectangular there than I've gone square. Sorry for that. Great. No, yeah. Amazing. So hopefully everyone's with me. Hopefully everyone's now feeling a little bit more warmed up at least. That is my next question. Are you feeling warmed up? Hopefully you are.
Hi, Ben.
Yes, sorry, Nikki.
Somebody asked, she could not find the brush tab.
Oh, okay. So if you ever can't find a tab, I just need to move my zoom because it's currently blocking. Sorry, blocking the top. So if you ever can't find a panel, so these are called panels. So whether that's your swatches, strokes, or layers and your brush panel. So by default, it should be here on the right-hand side. You can go up to Window on your top menu. You scroll down until you find Brushes, and you should have the brush panel activated if you've got a tick to the left-hand side. If you, it's up by your color panel. That's interesting. Good to know. If your view doesn't look like mine, and you'd like it to look like mine, you can go to Studio and you can choose Reset Studio. And what this will do is reset it to the default, and it will then look like my screen. If you've used Designer before or just played around with it a little bit, it's really easy to move and rip the panels from the sides and move them around. So it might have happened. But whatever you're comfortable with, the idea is you can customize it if you need to, sort of thing. Cool. In fact, I'm going to press reset to show you what would happen. And essentially, it's just taking me back to my layers panel because this is the default sort of view I've got going on. Amazing. Well, I think we're going to move on a bit more of an overview. I think I wanted to get you into the tools. I think I wanted to get you using them. But maybe we need a bit more of a bit of a tour of Designer in terms of how it works and how it looks. So I'm just going to go back to this blue icon here, which is our Designer persona, and that's where I'm going to start. And essentially, as you've probably realized by now, on the left-hand side, you have your tools. So on the left-hand side, we have a selection of different tools, and these tools change depending on what persona we're in. So I mentioned about vector and raster earlier on. There's two different personas for each of that. So we have the blue persona, which is the designer persona. And when I'm in here, all of these tools are vector based. And so what that means is if I draw a line, for instance, with the vector pencil tool, and I draw this out, it means it's calculated for me that line, and it's created it using nodes, which means I can go back and I can edit those nodes, edit that line, and change it if I want to. I can even change it to a sharp node if I wanted to, and we can play around with this line and reposition it later on, however we want. There's other tools in here like that. They're all vector based. So we've got the pen tool as well, which is probably the classic vector example, which allows you to just literally click out points, and then if you click and hold, you can pull the sort of nodes and make some nice sort of free flowing curves. You've got a vector brush tool, which does something very, very similar. In fact, let's just do a vector pencil line. And you've also got a new tool called the width tool. So at the minute when I'm drawing out this pencil line, it's all at a consistent pressure. It's all at the same profile. It's all at the same thickness throughout the entire line. And if we go to the stroke panel, we can change that. So if you go to the stroke panel and you drop down to pressure, which is this little panel here, you can create a bit of a graph. So I'm going to put a node in the middle and just drag these ends down, and you can see it's started to taper this line to give us more of a bit of a realistic effect. In fact, if I now draw out again, you see it's a bit more flowing. It's a bit more like using a real, maybe like calligraphy brush, or maybe a bit more of a sort of an illustrator's brush. And you can change that pressure profile as much as you like. If you double click on a node, it will allow you just to move the end, and you can have great fun with this. But once you've done the profile, it's kind of locked in. So the new width tool allows you to run across a vector line and adjust the width in specific places. So if I wanted to, I could enlarge this end here. We could create a new node and shrink this edge down. This is a bit thick here, and we could just sort of customize the shape and the width of the line at different points by using that width tool, which is just quite a nice little thing. We've got a bit of a sort of weird kite thing going on here, maybe, which could be quite nice. We've got a vector flood fill. We've got some gradients as well as your normal shape tool. So shape tools are as you'd expect. If you just draw out a square, just give that a fill. It'll be a square. If we draw out a circle, it's going to be a circle. If you hold the option on Mac, I think it will scale around the middle, and if you hold Shift as well, it will constrain it. So it's Command on Mac, Shift on Mac as well, Shift on Windows, and it'll be Option on Mac just to scale around the center there, which is quite nice. And then finally, you've got your shape builder and your text tools. Yeah, absolutely. Is it possible? So Joanna's asked is it possible to create just an outline of a shape rather than a fill? And absolutely. To be fair, we might as well go over to color and have a little look at this because it's a good time too. So at the minute, we're on our color panel here, and the color fill that we've assigned a red. And that the color fill is represented by this solid circle. And at any point, we can change that color. So we can use the wheel round here. We can obviously change as well the hue and saturation as well, just using the triangle here. So you can click and drag to get a nice color. And I think we'll go for sort of a lightish blue. But if you didn't want it to have a fill, you can use the set filter none circle, which is just to the left of your two overlaying circles. So we could knock out that blue that we've just put in. And then if you want to edit just the outline and the outline color, you need to use this circular sort of ring, this sort of donut that has no fill in the middle. And this is to represent just your stroke color. So now if I apply a color, you can see it's applying a stroke. Because I've set the pressure profile as well earlier, it's busy applying the same sort of pressure we had here. But we can take that off. If we go up to the stroke panel and down to pressure, we can just decide to reset that, and it will give us a solid outline instead. Also on the stroke panel, just as though on the top here as well, on your context toolbar, you can adjust the width. You can just bring this up and down as you see fit for your design. And then obviously this just is a hollow stroke, so you can see the red underneath, for instance, and you can see this here. Apologies. Yeah. So if you use the color panel and you're on your fill icon, you can just knock the fill out here, set to no fill. You can also use the context toolbar as well. So you can use the context toolbar here and you can choose no fill here. And actually that might be easier for some people. You've got a fill and stroke, just like the two circles on your context toolbar. And again, just no stroke. It's just there. Awesome. So everything we've done at the minute on this page is vector, which means we can go back into it, we can change it around, we can transform it, we could decide to slice it up with shape builder and things if we wanted to. But obviously, the advantage I said earlier on with Designer is the fact that it does both vector and raster. So for that, we're going to need to change our tool set. So we've done this already earlier when we went to the raster brush, but you change the tool set by changing persona. So on the top left-hand side, we're currently in the designer persona, which is fully vector. The next one along is the pixel persona. And if we click that, it changes all our tools to raster tools. So for instance, we've got our good old raster brush here. And in fact, it's just saying it's probably a good idea to create a new pixel layer. So we will just do that. We can drag this out. And this is now being created by those pixels that we were talking about earlier. You can see the sort of pixels that it's being used to create that shape. As a result, though, we can't actually go back and edit this now. Do you know what I mean? We've gone in, we've drawn our shape, and that's what we've got. So to edit this, we might have to use the eraser, for instance, to take out some of what we've done. We can do. We can break this curve here, for instance, just change the shape. We've got things that you couldn't do in vector, like your dodge tool, but we've also got your smudge tool. I don't think this is very strong, but essentially you can smudge it like you would do charcoal. We've got things as well like the blur. So if you just wanted to blur it instead, rather than smudge it around, we've got blur tool. We've got the opposite as well. So we've got a sharpen tool, which probably isn't going to work on a single line, but if you just see, it's probably making those pixel edges just a bit sharper. So it might be better for fine detail. We've also got tools in here that allow us to select pixels a little bit easier. So we've got the lasso tool here, which I think is the freehand selection tool, I think is its name. Let's just see if it pops up. There we go, freehand selection tool. And this allows us to draw out shapes or sort of areas around things to make a selection. So for instance, we can now delete those pixels if we wanted to. We could copy them and move them along somewhere else. So we've got a bit of a copy. We could also actually just choose to fill this this area in with our paintbrush tool. So let's pick I don't know why I'm going pink, but we're going pink so it's nice and bright. I'm going to bump up the width as well to make my life a little bit easier. Let's just keep the opacity and flow up, and then we can just color the shape in for this selection. There's lots of different selection tools in this. There's just an ellipse selection. There's also just a square as well as just a few sort of very individual line ones if you wanted a really sharp line. Whenever you've made a selection, you'll have these marching ants. That's what they're called. I always quite like this, that they're called marching ants, running around your screen. If you want to get rid of them, simply press escape. Cool. So what I thought, I realized I've taken up probably a bit more time than I'd anticipated, is that it'd be really good to just try and use some of the tools that we've spoken about and start getting to grips with them. So I thought I'd start with vector. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to make this donut. So I think at this point, we'll try and get you to follow along. You'll notice as well, I've just cleared everything on my canvas here, my artboard here. And I've done that by using the move tool. And I've just selected everything in the move tool, and then I've pressed delete. If you want to keep the stuff you've done, so if you actually did a nice drawing when I was just chatting there, you can create a new artboard by going back to the designer persona, going down to the artboard tool, and just actually, if you press insert artboard, it will make you a new one exactly the same size. I'm going to delete one. I'm going to go off my drawing because it wasn't very good. Cool. So we're going to make this donut shape. That's the first one we're going to do. It's going to be out of vector as well. So remember, we're going to need to be in the designer persona, which is the blue icon for all of our vector tools. And we're going to start with the ellipse tool. And for this ellipse, I think actually we're going to set the stroke. We're going to set that to black. And we're going to make sure our stroke is visible. So I'm just going to increase the stroke to, let's call it 3. I've done this on the color panel and I've done this on the stroke panel, adjusting the width. But if you wanted to, you could have actually just set your stroke here and adjusted your width here as well, just off your context toolbar. They're exactly the same tool, both work, whatever you would be comfortable with. And we're going to start by then drawing out that shape. So I'm going to hold Command and Shift on my Mac. I think it's going to be Option or Alt, sorry, and Shift on Windows. And that's going to allow you to draw a circle around the center and also constrain it so it's perfectly equal. We only need one for the minute, just showing you that you do it as many times as you like. And we're going to grab this circle and just position it somewhere over to the left. Now, what we can do here is we can either go ahead and we can draw out another ellipse inside. Or actually, before we do anything else, I'm just going to get you to come up to the very top toolbar, to the magnet icon, and I'm going to get you to turn on snapping. By default, I don't know why this is, by default, when you first open Designer, snapping is turned off. But what snapping essentially allows you to do is it allows you to snap your mouse or objects and items to each other. So when I now draw this new circle out and I try and position this against my original circle, you can see I've got these red and green lines that are snapping it to the absolute center for me. And it's just a really nice little thing to help us center things equally. So sorry, going back after we've activated snapping, we'll go back to our ellipse tool, we'll find the center, and again, we'll just draw out a little circle in the middle, which is going to act as the donut hole. And in fact, I think what we'll do, despite centering it, I'm actually just going to position it slightly up and to the right, just slightly off center, because we're going to try and make this a bit of a 3D shape. So next, I'm going to duplicate the little circle I have in the middle. So you can do this in lots of different ways. You can simply hold Command on Mac, or I believe it's Option on Windows, and drag, and it will duplicate. You can do Control-C, Control-V to copy and paste a new version and drag it out. Or you can use the actual duplicate function, which is Command-J or Control-J on Windows, and it just duplicates that shape for you. Now, I think for me, the most natural one is just to hold Command and drag. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to duplicate this in one of those ways and just offset it. So I've got like a bit of a 3D shape happening here, just inside this ring. So the next thing we're going to do is we'll select all of this by just literally click dragging and selecting all of our layers. And we're going to use the shape builder tool to combine these vectors together into one shape. So I'm going to select a shape builder tool, and with everything selected, I'm going to start to select areas I want to combine. So I'm going to click in this massive section here, and we know we've selected it because we've got these lines. And I'm also going to click just in here, so I've got both sections here selected. Now I'm going to want to join these together. So I'm going to go back up to my context toolbar, which you probably noticed by now changes depending on the tool you have selected. And I'm going to press the plus icon just to join those shapes together. So now, because this is vector again, this is all one solid shape that we can then color or blend or cut as we so wish. And in fact, I think that's what we'll do next. So we're going to go back to the move tool because we want to get out of shape builder. We don't want to accidentally cut anything else up. We're going to make sure that we just select, so I've clicked off, and I'm going to select my outer donut ring. And then I'm going to go to the, let's go for the gradient tool because that might be fun. And just select that tool. I can now click drag to drag out a gradient. So just to clarify, to make sure that we have that right, so you had your donut selected, you went to the gradient tool and you click dragged the gradient out. You can go the other way if you want the darker shape on this side, and you can do this as many times as you want until you find a sort of good sort of system for this. Obviously, the closer in you go, the sharper the fade, the further out you go, the more gradual. How do they get the shape builder again? Okay, just going back to the shape builder for Shen. So we had this shape. So we had two overlapping circles and our outer circle. With our move tool selected, we're going to select everything to make sure everything is selected. We're going to come to the left-hand side. Can you see this sort of green overlapping sort of icon? That's our shape builder. So we're going to single click to select the shape builder. And then, so because we have everything selected, we can now select different parts of this. So say we've selected this part, we might not actually want to select this part, but you can select anything that overlaps essentially. And we can be careful with this. So the bits that we want to select, obviously, are this little half moon here and this little bit here, or the big bit here. So another way to do that is actually you can select by drawing. So we could select this bit and this bit. Instead, you could also choose just to select it by clicking, whatever you feel comfortable with. And essentially, when you've decided what you want to combine or you want to actually delete and minus out, you can come up to your context toolbar and you can just click the plus. And that's the shape builder element. It doesn't matter too much if you've fallen over on that bit. We can still do the colouring and some of the other bits later on. Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to go back to the move tool, which is my little black cursor on the top left. I'm going to deselect. I'm going to select just my ring. And we'll going to do the gradient and we'll drag that gradient out. I'm going to want my darker color to my left because I'm going to pretend my light source is on the top right. And here we can go ahead and choose some colors. So if you select one of the nodes at the end of your gradient, you can come up to the color wheel and we can select any color we want. I think we're going to find sort of a doughy sort of effect. And then I think this is probably a little bit too bright, this one, the white one up here. Again, we can go to node so we can select any color we'd like. But I think we'll just add a bit of texture, bringing that down. So again, just to clarify, you can select the node, come to your color wheel and select any color you would like. We'll do the same probably for the inner side we have here, this little shape that we've made. So we need to make sure. Oh, I've actually done a mistake, I believe. So we're gonna have to go back to Shape Builder very quickly. So we'll select everything again, go to Shape Builder. We just want to make sure that this shape here is selected and is actually a shape as well. So again, just clarify, just select everything again, go to Shape Builder. We'll select this shape here and we'll press plus, and that's going to make that vector a shape in itself that we can then apply a gradient to. So we'll grab the gradient tool again and we'll just apply a gradient. And this time I want this to be a very dark version of this color. So we can use the color picker, just click drag over a color that we want. Release it when we've got to found a color we like, and just single click to fill in here. We'll do that again. That was a bit quick. But essentially, the color picker on your color panel allows you to pick colors anywhere else within your document. And it works by click dragging and holding your mouse down and then putting it over a color that you'd like to pick. And this includes colors around your UI. So if you wanted the dark gray, you can actually choose that color as well. We're going to choose another brown. So just looking for a sort of tertiary color. When you release your mouse, it chooses the color. And then what you can do is you can choose to apply that color by selecting where you want to apply it to and single clicking the color wheel up here. So just single tap and it will apply it into that node. Left-hand toolbar, the green square and circle overlapping each other. Thank you, Jodo. That is true. That is yeah, that is the shape builder tool if you're struggling. Great. Okay, so we've got our donut hole. I think as well, it's probably about time we start adding a bit of like texture and a bit of 3D-ness to this. So we're going to go back to the ellipse tool. And again, I'm just going to draw another circle out in the center. And we'll set this just to a bit of a light white. And we'll also just turn off the stroke. So at the minute, it's sort of this donut sort of light, sort of creamy color. And what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the layer opacity down. So we're on the layers panel, layer opacity, and we'll just drop this down. So it's just starting to sort of fade and sort of interact with that original shape, and it's just going to start to make that sort of look quite 3D. So you can go back to the move tool and you can move this round. We can position it where we'd like to. But what we want to do actually, because at the moment you can see it's sort of spilling over our original donut design, is we want to put this new circle inside the shape layer that we made. So to do that, we're going to use the layers panel. And it's really, really simple. All you need to do is you need to have the ellipse layer selected, and you need to click drag, and you need to pop it inside the curves layer. So just to show that again, so you're going to select the ellipse layer and you're going to click drag until it goes solid blue. So not below for a line blue, for the whole layer goes solid blue. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to pop that inside that circle layer. Now we've not lost that circle. We can still move it around. We can increase it, decrease it, whatever we'd like to do. All we've done is we've literally popped it inside the vector shape that we've made, which is great. Means that there's no overspill. We've got a bit of a 3D effect going on. It's starting to look a bit more like an actual 3D real shape. Again, I'm going to do it one more time because I know layers can be tricky. So all you needed to do there was drag that layer on your layers panel into the curve layer. Remember, undo is your friend. In the Affinity apps, you could undo, I think by default, about 3,000 times, depending on the spec of your machine. So don't be afraid to undo it if you need to, and try again. Just to clarify as well, so I guess we showed that blue line here, but if I was to drag down here and the blue line appears on my layers panel, it's just going to drop it underneath the layer. So because layers are literally like you stacking sheets of paper on top of each other, whatever you have on the top, you're going to be able to see. Whatever you have underneath is going to be hidden. So what we've done there is we've popped it inside instead, so we can both still see it, but it's nicely contained. Cool. So we're going to do something very similar again with that. We're going to go for the vector pencil tool. We're going to go for a fill, and we're going to go for, I'm filling a blue, but this is the point where you can be creative. You can go for any color, and this is going to form the icing on our donut. So just to remember our little example, this is the icing that we're going to create. What I've done there is actually I've applied the blue to my stroke, which is the wrong way around. So we're going to switch those rounds using these arrows here. So the arrows on my color panel, we're just going to switch. If you toggle these, it will switch the stroke and the fill colors, which is quite nice. While we're here though, we will just go to the stroke, and we'll just go to the fill and turn it to black, so it's just nice and neat. And I think for the stroke width, three's not bad. We'll keep it through. And essentially here, we're gonna drag out a bit of an icing shape around the edge of our donut, and just going to make it nice and sort of irregular, few sort of edges. In fact, I'm going to zoom out a little bit to make mine a bit easier. But essentially, just draw out a bit of a shape. I'm going to keep going as well, and we're going to connect it up right at the other end. Oh, I think my computer's just slowing down a little bit. I think it's Zoom. What we need to make sure that we've done is that we connect these two nodes together. So to do that, we're going to access the node tool, which is a bit like the move tool for nodes. So it's this little white cursor here. So it says 3 down, little white cursor here. And if we have this selected, we can then grab the nodes, move them around. And if we just overlay the two at the end, it will join them together. And as well, you can take this opportunity as well if you want to edit your stroke a little bit. So we can make this slightly more realistic. You can add nodes as well, or you can just pull on that to make a nice shape. So feel free to play around with that and get it to a point where you're happy. Next, we're gonna fill it. I thought I'd set this to blue, but I don't think I have. So we'll just fill this with a base blue. And in fact, if you wanted to, you could use the gradient tool again, just to make this a little bit different. So I think we'll pretend that our light source is in this top right. So we'll just maybe take this a little bit lighter on the right hand side, a little bit more realistic. But again, play with your colors. You can pick something that you're happy with. Once you're happy with that, we're going to do exactly the same as we did with the sort of faded ellipse. We're going to drag drop and pop that inside our donut layer. And we need to be really careful that we pop it inside the actual donut layer, not the ellipse layer. So just to clarify again, we're going to drop that straight into our full donut layer, not the faded ellipse layer. If you have put it in the faded ellipse layer, like I did actually to start with, you can go into the ellipse and you can drag it back out, just pop it in there. But essentially, again, we've cut out that hole in the middle. We've made a nice donut vector there. I think on my original, I'd had a bit of fun, so I'd repeated that process, and actually I'd drawn out another shape here, and we'd gone for a bit of a stripe, so sort of two-tone donut, and I think as well I'd filled it with, I think I'd gone for a red, I think, but the pink actually looks quite not too bad. Let's go so pinky red, and again we want to make sure that we've clipped this inside the right layer, so we're going to make sure that this is clipped into that new icing layer that we had there. Vicky, how am I doing for time? I think I've overran a little bit, haven't I? I thought I might have. Okay, so what I might do is we might finish this, and then we'll move on to Mickey's example of sort of mapping with the raster brushes. Not mapping, the reference. Sorry. Cool. Okay, so this. Sorry, is that all right, Jeff?
Yep.
Cool. Lovely.
Go ahead.
Amazing. So looking to finish this off then, there's a few things we could do to finish. Let's do some sprinkles. So they're called hundreds of thousands in the UK, but Americans I think call them sprinkles. So let's do a little bit of a sprinkle. So we're going to draw out a rectangle with a bit of a square here, and we're going to look at the corners on our context toolbar. We're going to set them to rounded, and we're just going to increase them. So make it a bit more of a almost a pill shape, but a bit more of like a sprinkle shape. Our stroke is way too thick, so we're going to just drop that right down, and then I'm going to use the drag duplicate function with the move tool just to duplicate this. But again, you could Control C, Control V as in to copy and paste, or Command J on Mac, or Control J, just to duplicate this a couple of times out. So we've got a few variations, and I'm going to change the color. So we're going to go for a light blue sprinkle. I'm going to go for a light green, and then we'll also go for maybe a bit of a yellow. And I can feel Mickey looking at me saying, "Ben, they are not tertiary colours." I did a colour thing. You should have listened. But just for speed, we're just going to start dragging these on just here. Just sort of transforming them using the move tool. So making sure we've got the black tool selected. And again, just having a bit of fun with the positioning. There's a really clever little thing you can do, which is called symbols, which allows you to turn these on to something you can transform all at the same time. But I think for time, we'll definitely not do that today. Try and make this a little bit more even, and just pull this in. Amazing. There's two more things I want to do. So obviously you can take a bit more time after this and position your hundreds and thousands a bit neater if you want to. I want to add a little bit of a light flare, and then I want to add a shadow. So that's the next two things I want to do. I'll tell you what, for neatness as well, I'm going to go to my layers panel, and I'm going to select my rounded sprinkles, and I'm going to select the top one, literally. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the last hundreds of thousands, or the sprinkle. I'm going to hold shift and click to select all of them. And then I'm just going to group these together just so they're a bit out of the way. And there's two ways you can do this. You can either do Command G or Control G, or you can right click and go down to group. Cool. So that means they're a lot easier to move. You could get rid of them if you wanted to, if you were unhappy with them. Cool. In fact, actually, we've shown the vector pencil already. Let's just move on to the shadow. So rather than doing these little light opacity streaks, we're going to just focus on doing the shadow. And to do this, you're going to go back to your trusty ellipse tool, and we're going to draw this out. Again, holding optional commands depending on what machine you're on to draw out a bit of a circle. We're going to turn this completely black, as dark as we can get it. And we're then going to drop this circle behind our donut image. So we can do this again a couple of different ways. So we can click drag this and drag it all the way to the bottom, and it will hide it behind. Or you can use the shortcut, which on Mac would be Control Shift and square left bracket. On Mac it's this, on Windows it's Control instead. But essentially we've moved the shadow to the bottom of the layer stack. So just in the same way that you moved things inside, we're just trying to move it so it's sitting at the bottom of the layer stack here. We're then going to go to Effect, which is, sorry, with our ellipse selected, we'll go to Effects, which is layer effects, it is the literally FX. We're going to go to Gaussian blur, and we're going to turn that on. And we're just going to pump the radius up. And as you can see, the further you go, the more blurred your little ellipse goes. And yeah, I think I'm going for probably about 18, 19. I don't want it too blurred. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to click close. Now, the awesome thing about Affinity is that we do lots of things called something non-destructively. And this essentially means that you can make effects and adjustments and then undo them. So it's a little bit like Vector, but for effects. So if you decided that you really didn't like your effect that you'd applied, you can either go back in and turn it off, or you can actually just drag the effect itself and put it in the trash. And that will just delete it for you. Obviously, it undoes it. I quite like the effect though, so we'll leave it. As a last thing, we'll just drop the opacity down on the layers panel just to make it a little bit more subtle. So just to clarify, if you go and select the layer you want to change the opacity on, go to your top of your layers panel and just drop the opacity just there. Amazing. We were going to go through this little how to draw a raster cupcake, but I think instead, because Mickey's next example is all raster based, I think we should probably move on if that sounds like a good plan. Amazing. Cool. So in which case, I think it's going to be this reference exercise here, and I'm going to hand things back over to Mickey.
Great. Let me share my screen. Thank you so much for that, Ben. Hopefully now they're more familiar and equipped with the tools needed for our next exercises and activities. The next exercise is called referencing. It is when you open a photo and try to make your own drawing while looking at that photo. So for this exercise, I want you to focus on the next artboard called Drawing Exercises Referencing. It's the one with the ramen photo. We will be referencing this ramen photo, but only the main shapes we could see. So it will be just simple. For example, the bowl, the egg, the meat, and the other ingredients. You can use whatever tool you want for creating shapes. You can either use the shape tool from the designer persona that Ben explained earlier, or the paintbrush tool from the pixel persona. So you can choose whatever you want. Learn how to use colors as well. So for example, we have brown for the bowl, yellow for the egg yolk, green for the veggies, and so on. So you can make your own ramen beside the photo provided. So there's an area at the right side of the photo. You can make your own ramen at that area provided. Does anybody have any questions? You can pop them in the chat or raise your hand. Did everybody understand the instructions? Great. Okay, so I'll be giving you 10 minutes for this activity.
Amazing. So I'm going to use the raster brush tool, I think here, and I'm just going to sort of slowly start sketching out some of these shapes. I think I'm going to go back to my raster persona. I'm going to choose my comic brush, and I'm going to draw it out. Just as well, I'm going to go ahead and create a new pixel layer as well on top of my art panel, just so it's all nice and neat on top of that layer.
Okay, 10 minutes is up. Now let's go back to Zoom. Is everybody back? Were you able to at least copy the main shapes of the ramen? Can I get a heart reaction? Yay! Okay, great. Now that we are done with our exercises, we will be doing our first drawing activity. Yay! So this activity is called blobs. I want you to focus on the next artboard called Activity 1 Blobs. So basically, this activity is about creativity. Using the raster paintbrush tool, draw illustrations following the shape of the blobs. You can pick your own theme. So what do I mean by this? So for example, using this specific blob format, different artists were able to create faces out of it. Awesome. Some were able to do bugs, loaves of bread, mushrooms, using different colors of brushes. So you can do whatever you want with the blobs given to you. For this activity, I'll be giving you 15 minutes. No worries, if you don't finish, you can continue it after this workshop. But does anybody have any questions? You can pop them in the chat or raise your hand. Great. No questions, so I'll start the timer. 15 minutes starts now. All right. Time's up. Let's go back to Zoom. How did you guys feel about the activity? Was it hard? Was it hard being creative? Because you're not copying anything. So in this part of the activity, I would want to share, I would want someone to share their work with us. Love that. It's kind of therapeutic. Art is therapeutic. Who would want to share their work with us? Who would want to volunteer? Come on, don't be shy.
Anyone feeling brave?
Okay,
Oh, okay.
Aika, go ahead.
Hello. I'm not really proud
Go
of
ahead and share your screen.
oh, can you see my screen?
Ooh,
And
sea
indeed.
creatures.
I tried to draw sea creatures that are green color,
Yeah, I love that. That's so cute.
but I'm not yet done like this turtle. It's not yet
Oh,
finished.
that's a turtle. That's so cute, Aika.
Yeah, this is sea urchins and then the fish and then jellyfish. Yeah,
And then
crab.
a
I'm enjoying the
crab.
crab as well.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Aika.
Yay. Thank you.
Maybe someone wants to follow that. Come on,
It's a
let's
hard
see
act
it.
to follow, I think.
Oh,
Am
Bea,
I?
come on, let's see.
Oh,
Ooh, we have a variety here. We have watermelons.
First I wanted to make it all animals, but I ran out of inspo. It's a it's a frog, then a turtle, then it became a watermelon. This one's Tinkerbell,
Oh, cute.
and this is just a lady in the wind.
That's so cute, Bea.
Then I ran out of time. Empty
That's
blobs.
okay. You can continue this after the workshop. Yeah, me too. I love the Tinkerbell. So creative. Thank you so much, Bea. It's okay, Joanna. You can share your screen without talking. That we could just see your work.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, wow. That's so good. Bit of an abstract. I love it.
She's saying she did fabric. You can really see it actually, can't you? All the curves and
Yeah, that is so good. All the wrinkles and the way it curves. Yeah. So great. I love it, Joanna. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else who wants to share their work?
I'll share mine.
Yay, let's go, Jody.
Can you see my screen?
Ooh. Yes, we can see it. Froggies.
Yeah.
So cute. I love frogs. I love drawing frogs.
The color definitely inspired the frogs and lily pads.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jody.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, to the rest of the participants, we will be providing a forum post on Pixabay website where you will be posting your final work for this activity, the blobs, and the next activity. So how will you be able to upload it there? You need to first learn how to export the file. Ben will teach us how to export your artwork into JPEG or PNG file.
fantastic. Well, in which case, I'm just going to share my screen again. I don't think my blobs were quite so good, but I'm quite happy with my ramen. I think we did okay. There's two different ways to export. So the first one is really, really simple. It's to go, once you're in Designer, go to File, scroll down to Export, click Export, and then you can choose here a format to export your artwork to. So JPEG is a really good example. So we could do a JPEG, PNG if you've got no background, if you're trying to put a bit of transparency. Or if you were doing, it's probably more photo wise, but if you were doing a really high resolution photo, you wanted it to stay really high resolution, TIFF is a really good choice for that as well. But for me, for what I've done here today, I'm going to go JPEG. That's a really good place to be. I'm going to go for the best quality, but if it's proving that the files are being really big, that you're getting exported afterwards, you can go to medium instead. I'm going to ignore all of the other settings and hit export. I'm going to choose a place to save it. So I'm going to drop it onto my desktop. And I'll call this Pixabay. I think I've already got a Pixabay folder, but I might just get away with it. Click save. And what that's going to do is going to export the entire artboard for me as JPEGs. So if I now go into my desktop, Pixabay, theoretically, it's just exported a blank document. So we'll just check, make sure we've got the settings right. Okay. So we can also as well, as a JPEG, we can choose an artboard to export, sorry. So if I go to introduction of tools, I've got the donut that we did earlier, which that's quite a good example. We could also go to blobs, which you can see my little man there wasn't quite as good as some others. I've also got, let's go for the donut. I'm quite happy with the donut. Click export, choose a place to save it. And it's then going to export that file for me as a JPEG. So that's one way to do it. The other way, which might be a little bit easier when you're working with loads and loads of artboards, is to use the slices persona. And that's the final, or the export persona, the final persona on the top right. We can select this. And what this basically does is it creates slices. So you can see we've got lots of blue boxes at the minute. But what we can do is literally click drag to create a new slice. There we go. And once we're happy with that, it's because we can obviously go back and edit it. We can choose the export option, which is this little export icon here. Choose where we want to save it, press export, and it's just then going to export that area. So if for instance, actually the blobs is probably a really good example of this. If I wanted just to export this man here, we could select just the blob, choose export, choose where to save it. And again, just a nice little PNG just of that space. Amazing.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. So how will you upload it on Pixabay? Here is the link of the forum post. I'll just share my screen. So this is the forum post. What you're gonna want to do is click on reply and just upload your photo. And then click submit. Simple as that. Just scroll down to reply, insert image, and then submit. Okay, great. For our next activity, and our final activity, it will be a culmination of our lessons. It's called Favorite Things. I'd like you to focus on the next artboard called Activity 2, Favorite Things. It's the blank canvas. First, I'd like you to think of a favorite event or memory in your life. Second, list down 5 things that are present in that event or memory. So for example, this person's event might be related to camping. So there's some tent, cup of coffee, some mountains, other camping stuff. Third, sketch those things on a blank canvas. Fourth, choose a color palette. So I'm just gonna go back to the Canva color palette website that I sent you earlier. So what you're gonna do is you can click whatever color palette you want. So for example, I want the salmon sushi. And then there are 4 colors here. You can choose a color and then click copy. You just click the box and it will copy the code for you. And then go back to Affinity. Oh, this is my frogs. Go back to Affinity. You can click on the color and then paste what you've copied, the code, and then click enter. And then you should have the same color. Oops. There you go. My laptop is a bit laggy, but I hope you understood how we can utilize Canva Color Palette website. Did everybody get that? Okay, great. So now going back to the instructions. Finally, color the sketch and finalize the outline. I'll be giving you 10 minutes to do this during the workshop because this is a take-home activity. You can continue doing this after the workshop. And like I've said before, just upload the file on the forum posts on the Pixabay website. If you have any questions, now is the right time to ask them. Your activity, your timer starts now. Okay, so time is up. Let's go back to Zoom. Like I've said before, this is a take-home activity, so you can continue this some other time and upload it on Pixabay forums. I'm also taking the time to introduce what Pixabay is. So Pixabay is a vibrant community of creatives who are sharing free, royalty-free stock media. This could be photos, illustrations, vectors, videos, audio, music, sound effects, or GIFs. All contents are safe to use without attribution, even for commercial purposes. But it's more than just a stock media website. It is centered around the community of creatives and artists like us. So here at Pixabay, we provide connections between individuals, artists, through our forum page. People can also comment on your work and can follow you. We also support artists through exposure, like being featured on the website and on social media platforms. Users can also use this platform as their own portfolio. Pixabay also provides inspiration to users, not only through its abundant content, but also through its events like contests. We also have creative prompts, blogs, and workshops like this one. So if you want to be part of this community, just head over to Pixabay and you can easily make a free account. So as your first task, we would like you to post your activity 1 and 2 in the Pixabay forum post, or tag us on social media at Pixabay at Affinity by Serif, and use hashtag made with Pixabay made in Affinity. Great. Thank you so much for giving us your time today and for participating well in this workshop. I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you're able to familiarize yourself with Affinity Designer 2 and the art of digital illustration. I also hope you were able to get to know Pixabay more, And most of all, I really, really hope you will continue this art form and create more amazing artwork using Affinity Designer. Thank you also to Ben for accompanying me today. That's it, and have a great day or evening. Bye.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.